There are signals that solve mysteries, signals that back up theories, and then there are signals that shatter everything we thought we understood. The kind that makes scientists stop mid-sentence, go silent, and stare at their screens, wondering whether humanity has just crossed a boundary it was ever meant to cross. Voyager 2, drifting alone through deep space for more than 46 years, has just sent one of those signals. What arrived through the Deep Space Network this time wasn't the usual plasma noise, solar echoes, or interstellar shock signatures we've grown used to. This time, the transmission carried patterns, structured, layered, rhythmic pulses, hidden beneath the faintest whisper of radio energy, traveling more than 12 billion miles across the void. And the timing makes it even more unsettling. This new signal appeared after Voyager 2 went silent for 7 months, after NASA managed to realign its antenna against impossible odds, and after every remaining instrument had already outlived its expected lifespan. It came at a moment when Voyager should have been quiet. It came from a region where no spacecraft has ever stayed stable. It came from the threshold where the sun's influence finally fades and the true environment of the galaxy begins. And the expressions on the mission team say everything. Voyager 2 didn't just send back data, it sent something that feels like a warning, a whisper, or a message from deep space itself. Tonight, we trace the journey from the launch of the twin probes all the way to the moment this new transmission reached Earth, and why this single fragment of radio energy has left NASA both terrified and fascinated, scrambling to explain what Voyager 2 may have encountered. But to understand the signal, we first need to understand the origin of the machine that sent it. And that story begins with a cosmic alignment so rare it appears only once every 176 years. Back in 1965, when space exploration was more imagination than science, a young graduate student named Gary Flandreau, armed with nothing more than a pencil and an instinct for orbital mechanics, made a discovery that would reshape human history. He realized that Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune were slowly drifting into a perfect gravitational lineup, forming a kind of celestial staircase. A spacecraft could slingshot from one planet to the next, leaping across the solar system with minimal fuel. What should have been a 30-year voyage could suddenly be completed in just 12. When NASA understood what Flandreau had uncovered, the agency quietly shifted its entire strategy and began building 2 probes designed to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime pathway. Machines that would ultimately ride this gravitational corridor and escape the solar system forever. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were created for that rare cosmic opportunity, designed to climb a gravitational staircase and reach worlds no human eyes had ever witnessed. What no one realized back then was that the same planetary alignment guiding them across the solar system would also send them on paths that plunge straight into the interstellar medium, into regions where the sun's power fades and only the raw environment of the galaxy remains. The alignment that made the Grand Tour possible is the same alignment that allowed this new transmission to exist at all. Voyager 2 launched on August 20th, 1977. A humble-looking probe wrapped in gold-colored insulation, powered by plutonium heat, and controlled by computers with less memory than a modern digital watch. Yet it became one of humanity's greatest explorers. It survived Jupiter's violent radiation belts. It threaded through Saturn's icy rings. It crossed the ghostly, frozen landscapes of Uranus. And it became the only spacecraft ever to reach Neptune, gliding past its deep blue atmosphere and watching the great dark spot twist beneath methane clouds. Along that journey, it uncovered new moons, rings, active volcanoes, nitrogen geysers, ferocious winds, and puzzles scientists are still trying to understand. Then, after its camera system was shut down and its final images were recorded onto its aging tape deck, Voyager 2 crossed the frontier where the solar system ends, the heliopause, and entered interstellar space. From that moment on, it relied entirely on the Deep Space Network to send faint whispers across a distance so vast that each signal takes 18 hours to reach Earth. But the story didn't stop there. As Voyager 2 drifted farther into the dark, its power steadily dwindled. NASA shut down heaters, turned off instruments, and sacrificed every non-essential system just to keep the probe alive. Even then, in 2020, Voyager 2 went silent for 7 long months, vanishing into the void. When NASA finally re-established contact, the spacecraft was different. Its data didn't line up. Its orientation had corrected itself without explanation. And soon, the first strange anomalies began appearing in its readings. Anomalies that seemed to echo in this latest transmission. Voyager 2 didn't just explore planets. It ventured into a region of space no machine has ever fully understood. And now it may be sending back the consequences. Voyager 2 revealed entire worlds that forced science to rewrite its textbooks. When it reached Jupiter, it sent back images of titanic storms, swirling multicolored clouds larger than Earth itself. It watched lightning tear across Jupiter's night side, and its cameras captured Io erupting with molten fire, the first active volcanoes ever seen beyond Earth. Discoveries like these could have defined Voyager's legacy on their own. But the spacecraft wasn't finished. At Saturn, it threaded its way through a minefield of icy particles, enduring collisions with ring debris traveling thousands of miles per hour. It flew past Titan and detected an atmosphere thicker than Earth's, hinting at chemical secrets scientists still debate today. Then came Uranus, the strangest and coldest of the giants. Voyager 2 discovered new rings, found 10 previously unknown moons, observed a wildly tilted magnetic field, and glimpsed a world tipped on its side by some ancient cosmic catastrophe. Next was Neptune, home to winds screaming at 1,000 miles per hour, continent-sized storms, and Triton, a frozen moon blasting nitrogen geysers 5 miles into the sky. Each encounter reshaped our view of the solar system, revealing a cosmos filled with violence, motion, and complexity. But all these discoveries taught NASA something else. The farther you go, the stranger the physics becomes. And once Voyager 2 crossed the heliopause, everything it measured, plasma, magnetic fields, particle density, began behaving in ways no model predicted. Now, decades later, those same regions seem linked to the mysterious new transmission. Before Voyager's cameras were turned off forever, Carl Sagan persuaded NASA to point Voyager 1 backward for one final photograph, a portrait of the inner solar system from 3.8 billion miles away. One tiny frame contained our entire planet, a faint speck drifting in a sunbeam, so small it looked like dust. The pale blue dot, an image that changed astronomy, philosophy, and humanity's sense of itself. After that moment, the Voyagers went dark visually. No more pictures, no more color, only instruments and radio waves, binary whispers crossing the silence of space. Voyager became blind, but it never became mute. It kept drifting outward, reporting cosmic rays, magnetic fields, and plasma density as it felt the transition into interstellar space. But over the years, those readings grew harder to interpret. Instruments weakened, memory shrank, errors multiplied, and the mission team had to rely on manuals written in the 1970s to keep the probe alive. Then, after nearly 50 years of travel, Voyager 2 began sending something that defied every technical explanation. A repeating pattern, a faint structured hum, and plasma measurements that didn't match anything known. At first, engineers thought it was a glitch. Then the signal came again. Then it grew stronger, and in the most recent transmission, something entirely new appeared, something NASA still cannot categorize. After leaving Neptune behind and drifting into the frozen dark, Voyager 2 approached a boundary scientists could only theorize about: the heliopause, the outer edge of the sun's reach. This is where the solar wind, streaming outward for billions of miles, finally collapses under the pressure of the interstellar medium. It is the divider between our cosmic neighborhood and the rest of the galaxy. Models predicted a smooth transition, a gentle blending, a soft fade. Instead, Voyager 2 found turbulence. Pressure waves slammed into the probe. Charged particles surged wildly. Magnetic fields snapped and twisted in unexpected directions. Plasma density spiked to levels NASA didn't think possible. For the first time in human history, we tasted the raw, undiluted environment of interstellar space. But the most unsettling part? Voyager 1, the first probe to cross the boundary, did not experience any of this. Voyager 2's crossing was sharper, thinner, far more chaotic, as if something had disturbed or altered the region since Voyager 1 passed through. That asymmetry made no sense. And after the latest transmission, scientists are forced to reconsider a possibility they once avoided. Voyager 2 may not have simply crossed a border. It may have crossed into something's territory. Once outside the heliosphere, the probe entered pure interstellar plasma, material untouched by the sun for billions of years. NASA had assumed this region would be quiet, empty, still. But the silence broke immediately. Voyager detected a hum, a steady, low-frequency vibration resonating through the plasma, too consistent to be random, too rhythmic to be natural turbulence. It pulsed, it rose and fell, it shifted with a pattern that felt almost mechanical, like a distant engine murmuring in the dark. This wasn't chaos. It was structure, layered, ordered, deliberate sounding. Voyager 2 was hearing something. And the deeper it drifted into interstellar space, the clearer that hum became. Over the years, its frequency shifted, changed, and reacted to unknown forces. And now, in the most recent transmission, that hum changed dramatically, almost as if something out there had moved, awakened, or noticed Voyager's presence. In 2020, Voyager 2 went silent, not for a few minutes, not for a few hours, but for 7 long, unsettling months. NASA publicly attributed the blackout to a misalignment of the Canberra dish in Australia, the only antenna capable of reaching the probe. But that explanation never fully convinced the mission team, because when contact was finally restored, something in the data had changed. The magnetic field readings looked different. Plasma density had shifted in ways no one expected. And most puzzling of all, the spacecraft had slightly adjusted its orientation, bringing its antenna back toward Earth without receiving a single command from NASA. But here's what troubles engineers to this day. Voyager 2 should not be able to correct its orientation anymore. The autonomous systems responsible for doing that have been decaying for decades. Yet somehow, during the blackout, Voyager held steady, realigned itself, and pointed home with near-perfect accuracy. And soon after communication resumed, the anomalies in the interstellar hum grew stronger and more organized. That 7-month silence now seems less like a simple communication failure, and more like something interrupted, affected, or interacted with the probe. Once Voyager 2 was fully online again, scientists noticed something their models could not explain. The magnetic field lines around the spacecraft were bending, slowly at first, then sharply, as if Voyager were moving through an invisible wake, a shape in space, a disturbance trailing behind something large that had passed nearby. Natural magnetic fluctuations don't produce that pattern. Random plasma turbulence doesn't either, but an object moving through a medium does. The distortions were too symmetrical, too clean, too smooth, and they persisted far too long to be random. One engineer described it quietly off the record. It's like Voyager 2 drifted through the exhaust of something enormous. NASA never used that wording in public, but internally the mission team acknowledged a possibility they had long tried to avoid. Voyager 2 may have crossed paths with something traveling through interstellar space, something capable of warping magnetic fields on a massive scale. And now, with the latest transmission, that possibility is becoming harder and harder to ignore. Interstellar plasma is supposed to behave like a stormy ocean, wild, chaotic, and impossible to predict. But the plasma oscillations Voyager 2 began detecting were nothing like random turbulence. They rose and fell in perfect intervals, repeating with such mathematical precision that they looked more like code than cosmic noise. At times, the oscillations even synchronized with Voyager's own engineering transmissions. Other times, they shifted frequency immediately after the probe sent its routine pings. That shouldn't be possible. Plasma does not respond to spacecraft transmissions. But something did. In the newest transmission, those oscillations not only returned, they evolved, forming complex harmonics never seen in any previous data. And at least one of those harmonics matches a rhythm Voyager 2 has broadcast for decades, almost as if something out there had learned to echo the probe's heartbeat back to us. Voyager 2 runs on radioactive decay, a slow, predictable process that drops steadily every year. Its power should only ever decrease. But right before the most recent transmission was sent, engineers noticed something unnerving. A brief surge in transmission stability, in power consistency. For a moment, the spacecraft behaved as if its dying power source had suddenly strengthened. That is physically impossible. RTGs cannot increase output. A 46-year-old spacecraft cannot become more stable with age. Yet somehow Voyager did, just long enough to send the most structured and mysterious signal in its history. Some suggested it entered a region of lower cosmic interference. Others proposed a temporary magnetic alignment, but the timing lines up too perfectly with the patterns found in the new transmission. Something stabilized Voyager 2, whether naturally, artificially, or deliberately, right before it spoke. When the Deep Space Network finally received the first packets of the new transmission, engineers expected the usual: weak carrier tones, plasma readings, engineering logs, and temperature data. Instead, the carrier tone was too stable, crisp, controlled, almost, and as the stream continued, several pulses arrived at perfectly timed intervals that matched none of the spacecraft's systems. Something was modulating Voyager's transmission. Then NASA noticed something far more disturbing. Voyager 2 was not the source of every pulse. Some of them were coming from outside the probe, somewhere near it. Inside the signal were deliberate gaps, silences spaced too precisely to be accidental. These gaps functioned like separators, dividing the pulses into clusters, almost like headers in a digital file. When analysts tested the structure using compression tools, the timing of these gaps resembled packet formatting, not natural plasma behavior. Even stranger, the entire cycle repeated every 3.2 minutes, the exact timing Voyager uses to send engineering logs. Whatever was responding to Voyager understood Voyager's timing. It mirrored the probe's rhythm, almost as if saying, "I recognize you." NASA scientists now believe those silences aren't empty at all. They're encoded pauses, waiting spaces, perhaps even prompts. One of the first things engineers check in any strange transmission is the Doppler-shift, the change in frequency caused by motion. When they ran that analysis, the truth hit them hard. Some pulses came from an object moving near Voyager 2, moving smoothly, moving predictably, moving in ways that matched neither dust nor rocks nor plasma waves. Something with mass, significant mass, was repositioning near the spacecraft, not drifting like debris, not tumbling like an asteroid, but performing controlled, deliberate maneuvers. At one moment in the data stream, the Doppler shift changed abruptly, as if the object executed a sudden course adjustment. That shift coincided exactly with a magnetic distortion Voyager recorded at the same minute. Something moved near the probe, and Voyager felt the wake. The deeper scientists dug into the transmission, the more disturbing the connections became. Plasma oscillations matching Voyager's telemetry patterns, magnetic distortions aligning with Doppler shifts, signal boosts appearing during thruster anomalies. Everything pointed to the same unavoidable conclusion. Voyager 2 was not alone. Something near the spacecraft was interacting with its environment, responding to its transmissions, and moving with unmistakable intention. And the more analysts searched through old data, the more they realized something chilling. These patterns had been building for months, maybe years, hidden in the noise because no one thought to look. The recent transmission wasn't the start, it was the reveal. In the final minute of the data stream, the most unusual sequence appeared. A set of modulations matching Voyager's own outgoing signal almost perfectly, but with subtle enhancements like an upgraded echo. It wasn't a reflection, it wasn't scattering, it was a reply, crafted to sound like Voyager's own voice. The automated software at NASA even tagged it as probe-like before human analysts intervened. Those ending pulses were impossibly clean, mathematically symmetrical, and undeniably deliberate. And the sequence closed with one final, intentional silence, the same length as the opening header. A beginning, a message, an ending, a complete structure. Something responded to Voyager 2. When NASA merged the engineering logs, magnetic distortions, plasma oscillations, Doppler shifts, and pulse timings into a single timeline, the mission team was confronted with a reality they had never trained for. Voyager 2 didn't just send home data, it sent evidence of contact. Not with a planet, not with dust, not with plasma, but with an object. An object that moved, reacted, and communicated using structured patterns. Something advanced enough to approach a 46-year-old spacecraft traveling 35,000 miles per hour and talk to it in its own language. Something waiting in the darkness between stars. Something we never detected until it chose to be detected. The transmission is no longer a mystery. It is a message. And now humanity faces a question we are not prepared to answer. What caused the transmission? Do we try to speak back? Do we send another signal? Do we wait for a reply? Well, do we stay silent? If this discovery shook you as much as it shook NASA's Deep Space Network, don't disappear into the night. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because the next transmission could change everything. Like this video so others can understand the weight of what just happened. And tell me in the comments, was this a greeting, a warning, or the beginning of something far bigger than we're ready for?